All righty, everyone. Hello, kings and queens. Happy Sunday, everyone. My name is Pamela. Welcome to the African Business Club. Our goal is to normalize financial literacy, networking, and sharing ideas and collaboration among Africans. Before we introduce before we start the meeting, I would like to go over some meeting guidelines. We have a moderator who will mute everyone's mic while the expert speaks. Once the expert is completed with his or her presentation, there will be a session for question and answer / a discussion session. At this time, feel free to unmute your mic to ask questions and give your feedback. Also, you can also post questions to the chat section of Zoom. This session will be recorded and it will be shared on YouTube and Facebook.
Hello, kings and queens. My name is Deji Babalola. Our financial literacy discussion topic for today is titled How the Stimulus Package Affects You. Today, we have a very special guest on the call to lead the conversation by the name of Kasey Ortiz, AKA the Tax Tip Diva. Her background includes being an enrolled agent with 20 plus years of tax experience that covers multiple types of tax prep, both business and personal tax preparation. She has a passion to educate everyone about tax laws that can help keep more of our hard-earned money in our bank account. She serves this mission by providing tax tips, online training, e-sheets, e-courses, and business coaching. These are multiple ways she uses to spread her knowledge and help others. Thank you again, Kasey. Please, you could begin. You're ready.
Well, hello, everybody. Hold on a second. It's like I got feedback. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Little echo.
Okay. I don't know where the echo's coming from. Hold on. Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, again, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I want to first thank the African Business Club for having me and being able to present this information. My passion and my goal is to educate everybody about taxes and about things that can help your bottom line. Because just like you, I was not aware of some tax issues, and that's how I got started in the tax industry. Today, I'm talking to you about the stimulus, but it's going to cover some things that you may not know and things that are not being spread. The information's not getting out there to everybody. And so I want you guys right now, because I am going to give you 4 points of information. I am going to have a simple PowerPoint presentation, but you're going to want a paper, pen, pencil, or something to jot down some notes, because I'm very big on information. I am an old school girl, so pen and paper are my friend. I even have my notes here. I've got like 4 pages of notes. So just know that you're going to be writing down some stuff. And based upon the timeline that we're working with, I might not be able to cover all of the information and get to everybody's questions, but feel free to follow me on either Facebook or Instagram by the same name, The Tax Tip Diva, and message me or set up a free 15-minute consult to further ask or answer any questions you may have. All right. So with that, I think it's time to get started. I'm going to pull this up and make sure everybody can see. All right. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So how the stimulus package affects you. So first off, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Like the introduction said, I have over 20 years experience in the tax industry, and how I got started was after serving my country. I was a Marine, active duty for almost 6 years, and I had to take a medical discharge. I was given a lump sum of money on my discharge and didn't really think anything of it, took all my paperwork and things to a tax professional and had my taxes done. A year later, trying to decide what I was going to do, I took a tax class, and it was in that tax class that I learned that my lump sum from my military discharge payment should not have been taxed. It was taxed incorrectly. I immediately amended my tax return and received a refund. And it was from that point that I thought to myself, how many other people out there don't know basic tax laws? Because I got that information in a basic tax class, introductory tax class. And how many people didn't have that information or don't know some basic laws to protect their income? And that started my career into the tax industry. And over the next, I'll say about 12 years, I worked for all of the big boy agencies, all of the big three. I worked for H&R Block. I worked for Liberty Tax. I worked for Jackson Hewitt. I worked for all of them at some point. I managed several offices and then decided to go out on my own. I then owned my own brick and mortar storefront office for 14 years. And I sold that business so that I could be more present online and reach and teach more people. And therefore, the Tax Tip Diva was born. So let's get into our topic. So this is about the stimulus. And I say the stimulus, but technically it is about the CARES Act. Okay, the stimulus is just one part of the CARES Act. And the stimulus, when you say that, everybody immediately thinks of the $1,200 check. Well, my points today are going to inform you of some things that are more than that, because you need to know this, and these are things that might be able to help you. So the stimulus is more than just a check. What the CARES Act did was they put a lot of rules and a lot of information in there to benefit people on a wide range, not just individuals getting a $1,200 check, but there are other tax rules in there that you can benefit from as an individual, in addition to multiple things for businesses. Now, I am not covering all of the things for the business stimulus today because it is constantly changing. These points are to help everyone on an individual basis that may affect your individual taxes that you file coming up in 2020 and maybe even for 2019 if you have not filed your tax return yet for 2019. So point one, stimulus check. Okay, the stimulus check, as we know, is either a $1,200, $2,400, or maybe even an additional $500 refund that you get. It's a payment. Now, what I want to say about this is that this is a refundable tax credit. This is not something that will keep you from getting a refund next year when you file. I have heard all kind of things going around. I've gotten DMs, messages, emails about a video or something where somebody's saying, hey, if you take this money, they're going to, keep your refund next year. No, that is not true. This is a refundable tax credit and you are getting an advance on it. What does that mean? That means that if you were going to get this tax credit, if you were eligible for it, when you file your taxes next year, then they're just giving it to you ahead of time, in advance. When you file your taxes next year, there will be certain documentation and questions that they will ask regarding if you received it, how much you received, and that way they can make sure everyone is getting the tax credit and the payment that they deserve. Now, not everyone is eligible, and there are gross income limits that apply. I'm not going to go deep into this. If you'd like to know more, I do have a free stimulus sheet that is available. All you have to do is go to the link in my bio on either Instagram or in the Learn More section or About section on Facebook. And you will see it says free stimulus e-sheet, okay? And I advise everybody to get that because it does cover who is not eligible. It also covers the income limits that are very common questions. Next, this is a biggie that I think a lot of people are missing out on, and I need to take a little bit of time to cover it. So everybody knows when you have, well, everybody might not know, but when you have an IRA or a 401k and you take an early withdrawal before you're 59 and a half, there's normally an additional tax penalty that is put on it. And normally that tax penalty is 10%. So if you took out $20,000, then your penalty would be $2,000. That's the additional tax. That's not the straight tax, that's the additional tax, because that $20,000 is penalized for you taking it out ahead of the retirement age requirements, okay? However, in this time of COVID-19, they are waiving the 10% penalty up to $100,000 of coronavirus related distributions. Okay, so what does that mean? That you can just go take the money out and redo your house or, you know, pay off bills or whatever? No, that is not what that means. What it means is if you have coronavirus related withdrawals, then the 10% penalty will not apply. So you say, well, what are coronavirus related penalties? So this is where you want to get your pen and paper. So if you've been diagnosed with COVID-19, you have a spouse or a dependent that was diagnosed with COVID-19, anyone who experiences adverse financial consequences as a result of being quarantined, being furloughed, or laid off, or having work hours reduced due to COVID-19, being able not to work due to lack of childcare because of COVID-19, or the closing or reduced hours of business owned and operated by yourself because of COVID-19. And they will be adding other factors. So this is an ongoing law that is being modified. So what they're basically saying is, if you have an IRA or a 401k right now, some type of retirement account that you've set up that you have been afraid to touch because you don't want to have to deal with the tax headache coming up when you file next year and be stressed about that, you can make a withdrawal and number one, not be penalized. You won't have to worry about the additional penalty, the additional 10%, as long as you fall within one of the categories that I just discussed. Now, it seems like it's going to be far-reaching because they're including a lot of information regarding how you can be affected. As we discussed, it says if you couldn't find childcare, if you have reduced hours, and if you're a small business owner, let's just say you're a sole proprietor or LLC or something like that, and you have a retirement account that you need to access, you can go ahead and access that now without the penalty fear. All right. So if it's a coronavirus related distribution, and unless you tell them otherwise, the amount required that you withdraw would not be portioned to the 10% penalty tax. And that could be huge because we're talking up to $100,000 that they're excluding. So that is good news. And I don't think a lot of people know about that, and that information's not getting out there. So that is definitely something that I wanted to cover. And here's something else about that 10% waiver. Also, if you have 3 years to actually pay back that distribution, and you don't have to be taxed. So let's use an example. If you took out $10,000 because you need it, your hours were reduced, you know, you're taking care of a loved one, somebody else is lost their job or company closed, you don't have to declare that $10,000 in your income next year if you know you're going to start paying it back. So you have 3 years to repay that $10,000 to yourself, to your retirement account, before you receive any taxes whatsoever as income. Now, here's the catch. If you do not repay it, then you have to amend your tax return. It will then be taxed on that tax return from 3 years ago, and you will have to take that tax. You still won't have the 10% penalty, but you will have the regular income tax for that $10,000 worth of income, okay? If you fall under 59 and a half, okay? I know it might sound a little confusing, but believe me, if you have a tax professional or that can explain this to you or that you can talk to, then I advise you do that. Your financial professional, your financial planner is not the one that you want to discuss this with. The tax issues are something you need to discuss with your tax professional. And if you don't have one, then of course, feel free to message me, get a consult on the books, and we can talk about it. All right. Number 3, a temporary waiver of the RMD rules for 2020. So RMD stands for Required Minimum Distribution. Now, this is only for people that are 70 and a half and up. I don't know if we have many of those listeners on here, but it was worth covering because you never know who other people know. It might be your parents, it might be an aunt, uncle, somebody you know that you might need this information for. So there are rules that say when you're a certain age and you have a retirement account, like we just spoke of before, once you reach a certain age, you have to start taking the money out. You have to start withdrawing the money. That is what a required minimum distribution is. And if you don't, then you are penalized. So what they did was, in this CARES Act, as part of the stimulus package, they have temporarily waived the required minimum distribution rules for amounts that would normally be required for you to take next year for this year, for 2020. So you don't have to worry about that. They have waived the rules on that. Again, this is a tax rule, and so you don't have to worry about that. If you know someone who's on the fence and they're worried about it, let them know that the waiver is in place for RMD accounts, okay? If you've taken an RMD in 2020, you might have the opportunity to roll it over if they are still falling within the 60-day rollover requirements. I don't think we've been in lockdown 60 days yet, but it sure feels like it. Again, this is one of those tax rules that can get a little confusing, and you need to make sure you're talking to a professional to make sure that you're getting clear direction and that it applies to you, because all of these rules do not apply to everybody. That is very important. You need to understand certain tax rules don't apply to certain people, and then there's other tax rules that do. So, all right, next slide. We have two more. Charitable contributions. So this is huge because charitable contributions have always been limited to people that itemize their deductions. And personally, I think that is not right, because there are a lot of people that don't itemize or can't itemize and give to charity heavily. So if you give to your church, if you're tithing, donating, then you were limited to taking that as a tax deduction prior to this CARES Act change, only if you itemized. So what the CARES Act has done, they've implemented a deduction that says you can deduct up to $300 of cash contributions from your income. And we like to call this, in the tax and accounting industry, an above the line tax deduction. So above the line means anything you can take prior to coming to your adjusted gross income. So if you made, let's just say $5,000 of income, now your adjusted gross income can be $4,700 because you get the $300 deduction of qualified cash contributions. Now, let's say this. You have to actually have made these cash contributions. This is not an automatic deduction, okay? And what I want to say here about charitable deductions, and this is a side note, you want to take note of this, is if you are making contributions, cash donations to your church, to your religious organization, please, 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 number one, make sure that they are an authorized charitable contribution. There is an IRS link that has all of the approved charitable organizations in it, and you can search it by name. to see if they're authorized. Number two, you want to make sure that you put your cash donation or your check in an envelope with your name and address on the front. If you get those free nonprofit stickers in the mail, go ahead and throw one of those on the envelope. Do that a few times so that they know who it's coming from, and then you can just write your name on the envelope after that. And here's the reason for that. Because that is how they track your donation and can email you or mail you a statement at the end of the tax year that you use on your taxes. Or if you're writing a check, you need to make sure that you're tracking that so that you have a total that you can use as proof of your cash contribution. Here is another tip about charitable organizations and cash contributions. Girl Scouts is a charitable organization. They are listed. If you bought, like I did, 4 boxes of cookies this year, you have a $20 cash contribution. Okay, so make sure that you're getting your cookie snatcher, expense deduction for your credit, okay? And this is effective starting 2020, this tax year. So next year, when you go file your taxes, have your charitable contributions list ready so that you can get this credit. All right. Last but not least, again, another charitable deduction modification. The CARES Act permits cash contributions by individuals made during 2020 to charitable organizations other than supporting organizations, donor-advised funds, and most private donations to be deducted up to your AGI. Okay, so up to your AGI. Now, there are some limits, and when you hit those limits, then the charitable contributions then become a carryover. But they can be carried over and carried forward up to 5 years, which is amazing. 5 years. So if you go over your charitable contribution limit, we're not saying don't give, but if you go over your limit and it cannot be used on the current year's tax return, then the remaining amount can be carried forward and used on upcoming taxes that you file up to 5 years. Again, this is another one of those rule type of tax return issues. So you want to make sure you're talking to your professional to make sure they can give you the guidelines for your income. I'm about to wrap up, but what I want to tell you now are a couple of points. Number one, remember this: when it comes to taxes, tax laws change annually. So there's always some type of tax law changes. When you go to a tax professional's office, don't just walk in there and tell them, oh, just do the same as last year, because tax laws change and you need to make sure that you are getting credit for everything you deserve for the current tax year. Number two, there are different types of tax credits. There are tax credits that apply to people that make $150,000 or less. And then there are other tax credits for people that make $150,000 or more. And there are tax credits for people that have children. And then there are credits for people that don't have children. In addition to that, tax credits can either be refundable or non-refundable. What does that mean, Kasey? Well, a refundable tax credit is one that reduces the taxes you owe up to zero, and then pays you the excess of that tax credit as a refund. So some of those items are things like the earned income tax credit is considered a refundable tax credit. All right. Third, some tax benefits expire. These rules that they've implemented for the stimulus that put in these changes and law changes and rule changes and benefits, they will expire. These are not things that they've put in to the tax code to be ongoing. They have not issued guidance yet and told us the expiration date for some of these benefits, but they will expire. So don't wait and think, oh, I'll wait and I'll do this. No, you need to get it while the getting's good, okay? And last but not least, I just want to tell you to review your tax return. What is on your tax return is your responsibility. If you get information put on your tax return that does not apply to you, make sure you bring it to the preparer's attention, because it is your responsibility once you sign it and submit it that it is accurate and truthful to your knowledge. All right. So that's it for my presentation for today. And I want to thank you. I've listed my information. You can always email me at info@thetaxtipdiva.com. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram, as I mentioned before, and know that I am here to help you keep more of what you've earned.
Wow. Hello, everyone. My name is Damia Keju with the African Business Club. And thank you so much for an amazing presentation, Kasey. I'm pretty sure everyone cannot wait, for the Q&A session and to ask questions with all the information you just provided regarding the stimulus package and tax tips. And also thank you to everyone for joining us today. Before we continue to the Q&A session of this conversation, for everyone who is not currently following us on our social media platforms, you can follow us on Instagram at African Business Club 2020, our YouTube page as well at African Business Club. Subscribe, like, and share. And our conversations will be posted on YouTube for anyone who wants to keep updated. And we also have our Facebook page now at African Business Club. So if you want to join the conversation and updates, you can follow us on Facebook. And also we have our WhatsApp group. So for anyone who wants to join our WhatsApp group, you can DM us on Instagram. Okay, and also for anyone who have questions, and if you're a little shy about speaking up, you can post your questions in the Zoom chat if you have access to your Zoom.
All right, thank you, Dami, for that. So, like Dami said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, or feel free to type it into the chat function. So, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead.
Hey, Kasey, awesome job. Thank you so much for the presentation. So, one question we get a bunch of times, and I know you discussed at the beginning, just for those that joined late, if you can just answer this one more time. So let's say, for example, I get a check for $1,200, right? And next year I get a tax return for, let's say, $2,000. Can you just explain how that works out in terms of, would they deduct the $1,200 from my tax return for next year? Just, if you don't mind, one more time for those that joined late, how does that money work out for the next year's tax return?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. And again, yes, let me be very clear. This is not an advance on your refund. This is a tax credit, a refundable tax credit. And what the government is doing and the IRS, they are providing that payment in advance. So in your case or your example, like you said, your refund is supposed to be $2,000. Now, that can come from any number of things, but I'm going to simplify the example and just say that you didn't have any other tax credits, you didn't have earned income credit, you didn't have child tax credits, you didn't have education credits or anything that tied into your $2,000 refund. Your $2,000 refund, for the purposes of this example, is coming from, let's just say, $3,000 of taxes that was withheld from your paycheck, right? And now you're expecting a $2,000 refund. No, they will not take $1,200 out of your $2,000 refund and only give you $800. All right. So this is a refundable tax credit. This is not an advance on your refund. Does that explain it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kasey. Just have one more question here.
Okay.
If you don't need the tax refund, I mean the stimulus package for key necessities, what is a smart way to use it? Would you save it, invest it, or just leave it alone?
Okay, well, that's a good question. I will tell you, for me, my advice to anyone, now I am not a financial advisor, so I can't tell you how to invest it, where to invest it, or things like that. I can definitely tell you what'll happen once you invest something and then you take it out or move it around. My personal suggestion would definitely be to take that stimulus and do two things. One, support another Black business. Recycle our dollars in our community. And second, starting a business is the way to go. I can tell you this is going to change our new normal. People will be staying at home more, they will be shopping online more and doing things like that. So starting a business that can service the community or service people in the manner that needs to be done in this new normal is an excellent bet. And it will also benefit your bottom line on your taxes as well.
All right,
Does that
thank you so
help?
much. Yeah, thank you so much, Kasey.
You're welcome.
And there's another one question that we have here. What does it mean for students with student loan debt with this stimulus package? Has anything been effective for people who have student loans debt?
Yes, there are some student loan reprieves that they have enacted. I will be actually making I will be going live and giving all of those points this week because they just sent out new guidance on that. And I don't want to speak prematurely, and tell you certain points. I want to have all the information first. And I will be posting it on my Facebook and my IG platform. So make sure you follow me and turn on your alerts so you'll know when that information is posted. But I will tell you this, yes, they have implemented some new guidance and some new rules that benefit the people that are paying on student loans and getting a break. Kind of like the mortgage industry is doing with the mortgage loans.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you know what the general guidelines are or the requirements to get the small business loans from the CARES Act?
Okay, so under the CARES Act, there were two main loans that you heard about that were touted through um, the stimulus package or the CARES Act. One was the economic disaster loan and the PPP loan, which was very popular. Unfortunately, the first round of funds depleted everything, which we're talking $360 billion. And it's sad because the money that should have rightfully gone to small business, the rules were very extended and they covered businesses. They considered small businesses that had 500 or less employees. And as you may have heard, it went to some of these larger corporations, corporations like Ruth Chris, corporations that really did not need the money. So with the new PPP loan, they are issuing new guidelines that should be out here soon that are going to benefit more of the small business community. What I can tell you is based upon initial information that we've received, it will benefit more sole proprietor, LLC, small businesses that employ less than 100 employees, under $5 million, I think are some of the guidelines, but they are definitely refining the rules from what they were previously. In addition to that, what I can tell you, when you go to apply for some of these loans, you definitely want to make sure you have the following items if you are a business owner. You want to have your articles of incorporation or your articles of organization. You need to have your EIN number. You need to have at least your previous year's tax return. You need to have a profit and loss statement. And I do believe that one of the guidelines said you had to be in business prior to January 30th of this year. You had to be an active business. You couldn't have started your business this year and apply for the loan. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Kasey. We have a question on the chat from Erica. She says, thanks for the information. She wants to know, can you go over the $300 deduction for tithing again?
Sure. The charitable deduction, the $300, thank you, Erica, for your question, first of all. So the $300 charitable deduction is a benefit for people that do not itemize. So let's just say you don't itemize your deductions because you don't have enough items to do that. So normally when you did charitable deductions, it would be on the itemized side. Now, if you have income, let's just say you made $10,000 this year and that was it, $10,000. And then before you take your standard deduction, before you take any exemptions or anything, you can get a $300 charitable contribution deduction, which lowers your $10,000 taxable income down to like $9,700 prior to taking your standard deduction. It is a cash charitable contribution deduction. You must have proof. It is not an automatic deduction. So if you gave to Girl Scouts, you bought 10 boxes of cookies because they're $5 a box now, well, where I am at. So 10 boxes of cookies is $50. And then you gave $100 to your church and you gave $100 to another charitable organization for COVID-19 relief and another $50 to another organization. That makes up your $300 cash contribution that you can take off of your $10,000 before anything else. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Casey, for answering that question. We have one more question on the chat. This is from Adenike. She mentions, does that mean that the 1,200 stimulus credit will be added to your next year taxable income?
No. Good question though. I've got that a lot, and I've had a few people hit me up in my DMs and send me emails and question about that. No, the stimulus refundable tax credit will not be taxed. It will not be added to your income next year when you file your taxes for 2020. It is not taxable, and it is not going to be deducted or be in advance from your refund.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Kasey, I've got someone that sent me a question asking, so for those that didn't get the 1,200, how can they track it to see if they're going to get one?
So that's another good question, and that's a question I've received a lot also. If they have not received their 1,200 yet, then it could be based upon a number of reasons. There is a way to go online at irs.gov. Everybody take a note, irs.gov. And there is an area on there where it says COVID-19 relief. And I think there's also, it says stimulus, track your stimulus. And it's kind of like the where's my refund tool. You put in certain information, and then they can, some information pops up to let you know if it's en route, if they don't have any information, or further information is needed. Now, I will say this, if you get a screen that says no information, like they have no information about issuing it, they don't know where it is, then it could be based on a few things. Number one, they are pulling information from 2018 and 2019 tax returns. If you did not file a 2018 or 2019 tax return, that could be part of the issue. If you filed a 2018 tax return, but you moved, then that could be the problem. If you filed a tax return, but you weren't getting a refund and you didn't put a bank account information on there, let's just say you owed taxes, that could be another reason, because again, they don't have a bank account information to put it. And when you go to that COVID-19 irs.gov information, there is an area where you can put your information in and put your bank account information to get your $1,200. Another reason is you may be over the gross income limit. So those are all factors, but there's a lot of factors that could be preventing a person from getting a stimulus payment.
Thank you, Kasey. One more question from this side. So most Black businesses, I guess not most, but we have hairstylists, barbershops. Can you discuss how this small businesses can take advantage of this CARES Act, or is there anything they can do, like for the hairstylists, for the salon owners? What can be done from their side?
So most hairstylists, barbers, makeup artists, and people that are in some of these service industries right now, I can tell you, you can do a few things. So the federal government also included, excuse me, and this is something I was going to cover in my business stimulus information course, is you can apply now for unemployment. That is huge. Now, yes, it might take a while for your unemployment to work through the system, but starting this week, sole proprietors, independent contractors are available to file for the unemployment benefit. So make sure that you have your information ready and you can file. I think they're opening that up tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's the information that they sent out, that you can apply for unemployment. In addition to that, with the new PPP loans that are coming out, they will be benefiting independent and small businesses like the hairstylers and the barbers more, and they can go ahead and apply. If you don't have what's considered a profit and loss statement or official documentation like that to prove the income from your business, there are some very basic type Excel worksheets that you can do to help you figure that out and get that. And I do a educational teaching. I do a 3-part course on small business startup and things you need to have. And I'm going to be opening that up here in a couple of weeks as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Kasey. We just have room for one more questions. There are 3 questions in the chat. I'll try to put them together. This is a follow-up from Adenike regarding the $300 charitable tax credit. Does this mean that maximum credit you can get for donation made to charity is $300, no matter how much you donate? And also, is there a minimum or maximum donations you can make towards charity before you can get a tax credit? So there's one more also from Violence. Is there an end date when they will stop giving the stimulus check?
All right, all great questions. Number one, no, I think they are advancing the payments. At first, the guidance said they were going to be immediately sending everything out through July, but I think they've extended that, and they haven't issued a cutoff date yet of when they will be sending those out, because as we've learned, our quarantine, stay in the house dates have changed. So I think prior to our latest information, they were talking July 30th for the advance payments. However, that does not mean you won't get it. It just means that you would have to file your actual tax return, and it would have to be calculated and added in order for it to be processed. Now, as far as the charitable contributions, the $300 is the guideline right now for non-itemized deductions. If you are not itemizing deductions, that is the guideline that they're saying right now. You can get a $300 charitable deductions credit. That is the maximum that they've said. However, as we know, things are very fluid and it might be changing. That is part of the CARES Act. However, it's for the 2020 tax return. And for the 2020 tax return, all of the tax rules have not been finalized. All of the tax rules will be finalized by the end of this year. So when you file your taxes next year, then we will have all of the rules and all of the information present. I think we're running out of time. I want to give my host the mic back. If you have more questions, hit me up on Facebook or IG and set a free 15-minute consultation.
All right, thank you so much, Kasey.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
All right, Kasey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for that presentation. Thank you, and for taking our Q&A. This is the last segment where we ask our host for the common sense finance tip or tax tip that you want to share with us.
So my common sense finance tip for everyone is keep track of your documents, because your documents are the way to help you keep more of what you've earned. Don't throw something away because you're not sure that it applies to your taxes. Let the professional do that. Let them tell you what applies and what does not. So my tip to you is keep track of your documents.
All right, thank you so much. I hand it over to Doing now. Go ahead, Doing.
Kasey, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. So I know we're definitely running out of time, but we have one more question, and I promise this will be the last question on the chat. So the question is, with that said, for independent contractors and sole proprietors, will filing for unemployment affect your income for next year for taxes compared to filing for PPP?
Unemployment on the federal level is a taxable income. However, I'm pretty sure they're going to enact rules regarding how much will be taxable and how it's related to COVID-19. However, when you file for unemployment, they do have a box that asks, do you want taxes withheld? I always advise my clients to check the box, yes, you want to have taxes withheld, just in case, so you can have something to help offset that income at the end of the day.
All right, thank you so much, Kasey. Once again, we really appreciate your time and for that wonderful presentation. You dropped a lot of knowledge and some gems and a lot of tips, so we really appreciate that. And also, thanks to everyone for joining us today. We thank you for your time. We really appreciate you joining our conversation today. Once again, this is African Business Club. Our goal is to normalize financial literacy, collaboration, and sharing of ideas and information in our community. And like we said earlier, the conversation doesn't have to end here. So please join us on Facebook, Instagram at African Business Club 2020. And also please subscribe to our YouTube page, African Business Club. Subscribe, like the page, and share the information with all your friends and family. Lastly, let's remember we are all kings and queens. Let's treat each other as such. And like Kasey said, please let's support Black businesses. It's something I take very personal, and I'm glad Kasey mentioned that today. So please let's do that, and let's elevate each other financially, emotionally. And so with that said, thank you everyone. Peace and love.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, D.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, join us in 2 weeks.
All right.